Joe Mullings from 160 Studios on this wonderful November morning. In case you're watching, I'm wearing the same sweater I had in the last one. My producers are giving me a hard time for it, but I think we'll live. It is with Brunello Cucinelli after all, so I could deal with that. She said, if you would just work a little harder and bill more, you could get another shirt. It's true. But that's what we're going to talk about this morning. We're going to talk about building companies, and especially building companies coming from OUS to the US. And there seems to be part of it's because of the venture market or the lack thereof in the European market. Also, obviously, the US being the largest medtech healthcare market. People used to pursue CE mark first and then come over here. But as money got tighter and people really started to evaluate what was going on their spend, they said, if we're going to end up in the US anyway, why don't we just go there straight out, which is probably a reasonably good strategy. And until things change to make a different decision than that, that makes the prudent call today. So let's talk about, if you're an OUS company coming to the US, what should you be thinking about? Because we've seen this. We work very closely with organizations just in the past 12 months. This is not a commercial. This is just, I'm basing this on our experience on companies coming out of France, out of the UK, out of Israel, out of Germany, out of Italy, out of Australia, out of Singapore, out of India. And I'm probably leaving a couple of regions off the map here, but let's just start there. And invariably, the strategy appropriately always is, let's hire a US person to run our US kickoff, first person in country. And it's a good thought. But what we've watched, and we've had to come in and actually, help undo some previous decisions made by bad hires, is before you jump to make the hire, what diligence did you do in the US market? And this is where it's critically important that we get involved with clients on this. And even if you don't come to us, here's what you need to think about. Before you even put the spec down on paper about who you're going to hire. So first, what region of the country should you be focusing on? Because the US is not the US as a homogenized market. There's an East Coast market, there's a Northeast market, there's a Southeast market, there's a Midwest market. And depending on what your product is, if it's ortho, we start to see a lot of the Southeast come in. If it's cardio, you have the heart attack belt in the South, the Alabama, Louisiana, Carolinas, Georgia. You have, due to diet and smoking and genetics, that market. You got the West Coast market that doesn't seem to attract a lot of attention in regards to therapeutic excellence. So you're finding Northeast, Mid-Atlantic, Southeast, and the Texas market, which is where a lot of people seem to index towards. So understanding those markets, the people who live in those markets, the travel capabilities in those markets, the major airports in those markets. Okay, that's one little category. The other category you should think about is, how are you going to handle the mechanics of paying your first 1, 2, 3 employees? Are you going to have a payroll organization? It seems very basic, but I can tell you many organizations will start their hiring activity without having the answer to that, and then will scramble midway when they do finally get somebody in queue near finals of, can we pay you as a consultant first? That was never handled up front. Well, hold until the offer letter, because now we have to go find a payroll organization and use their legal team and have them put the offer letter together. And that creates a lot of time in between the decision-making process and the final outcome. And time works against you. Time kills all deals once you have somebody in queue, because generally that leader is looking at 2 or 3 other things. And it might instill a feeling of, perhaps, have you really thought through everything else if you haven't thought through this? So getting that organization in place, getting those benefits in place, getting the 401k in place, letting that first hire know this might be a 6 months transition, letting that first hire know, healthcare benefits, because a lot of OUS companies have more socialized medicine, so it's not front of mind for them. But in the US, it is front of mind for people, because Their sig other wants to know about healthcare. They want to know about healthcare. And have you put in place a solution for healthcare? And it might be as simple as using Cobra that person has, if Cobra is still available for them. But you best answer that, or you best be able to have them compare their current healthcare program to what you might put forth. So that's another on the payroll benefits. Have you thought about it making a consulting transition to an FTE, a full-time employee in that area? Because that may be a way for you to try before you buy both ways, which, again, depending on the status of your organization and the type of role you're trying to fill, that might be best for both. You don't know, but at least have the conversation on the table before you reflexively say yes or no to that. And then probably most important is title, because title informs compensation. So if you're an organization, I don't care if you're an ortho robot, I don't care if you're visualization, I don't care if you're an implant company, if you're a structural heart company, deciding what you're going to call that first on the ground in the US, it could be a GM, it could be head of the Americas, it could be market development officer, but you've got to think strategically, where do you go from there as you fill out the rest of your roster? And are you keeping yourself at least flexible enough that once you hire that person, you realize either their capabilities or their short givings? Have you blocked yourself strategically out of bringing somebody above them in case it is needed with that title without having to change their title and cause an internal mess? So guidance there is, it could be head of, it could market development, head of commercial, and that's acceptable on most of the US people's resumes as they think about the development of their professional pathway. And then finally, compensation. Have you done a full, realistic diligence of compensation models specifically in your therapeutic area, in that level, title, responsibility range, in the geography? And none of that is available online. In other words, you can't go to these salary surveys for an OUS company, bring a technology to the US, putting a head of in place, and you've got to get a team that should go out there and bring you 10 to 15 people with a grid and a breakdown of base, bonus, variable, first-year guarantee based on your sales cycle, which will then inform the revenue flow in the organization, which then informs the incentives of variables on that lead person. This is all needs to be done before you write that job description and take that search to market. Because if you're building the plane while you're flying it, you're not going to instill the confidence in the leadership that you're having conversations with in the US. It's highly likely going to delay your ability to hire that person because didn't do the prep work up front, and they are already interviewing in other organizations right now. And if you don't have that worked out, they're wondering in their mind, what else don't you have worked out? And then finally, and this usually happens on the back end of the deal when this due diligence has not been done, compensation packages in the US are dramatically higher than rest of world at large, especially if you're coming out of Israel, especially if you're coming out of France or any other European, and even out of the UK as well. You've got to get this cleared through your board members, through your founder. It's very likely that this US leader is going to be more highly compensated than your current CEO that might have been a founder of this company or leading the company outside of the US. You got to be prepared for that, because otherwise you're going to find out what's needed in the US market at the back end of this process. Then you're going to wrestle with the internal perceived inequities where that talent is not in the US, it's not responding to market in the US, and generally ends up being a much larger burn. We watch organizations then retrench the position, start over again, take a search out to the market. Market then hears that you're out again on that search, and it doesn't send a good signal. So this is why again, not a commercial. This is why we have that advisory relationship with our client companies that do that work up front. And if you decide to come to us for your search business after we offer that advisory, because 30 plus years, 9,000 placements, and about 20 to 25% of them have been OUS companies coming to the US, we do that for you, or you should get it done by somebody else before you end up coming to the US market. It will save you time. It will save you probably money in the offer. It will get you quicker to market in the US, which saves you money because you're not going through another 2, 3, 4 month burn rate by the time you get to the US. And you'll just understand the US market because of the process much better. So there you have it. Take your time coming to the US, do your diligence. And when I say take your time, that means save it from doing it half-assed. I'm Joe Mullings from 160 Studios. Be well.